Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Andijan in Uzbekistan. Now, as you can see, Andijan is very tiny. It's just a little section here in the Fergana Valley. There's mountains down here, the Altai Mountains, and mountains that reach up here. In the middle is this beautiful, fertile region, the Fergana Valley. So Andijan is just a part of it. And I'm actually going to pull out my tablet now and show you what it looks like from above, because there are not a lot of pictures of this area. The area is pretty much farmland. It's just farms. Farms and farms and farms and farms. So many farms, you can see little mosques and things, but it's farmland. There's some areas where there's some rocky points, but there's no pictures of these rocky areas, so I wish I could show you, but I can't. Here you can see the city of Andijan. Not a lot of photos here as well, but I'll try to show you some real quick. It's mostly just of the mosques and the very beautiful modern buildings, pretty mosque here, of the area. It's a very modern city nowadays. It's really boomed in the past 10 years. 10-15 years. Pretty Christmas tree here. And it looks like it's a really pretty place around autumn. Look at that. It's so lovely. But that is pretty much all that I have to show you. The only other cool thing about this region is that there are some exclaves, I think they're called. Like this is Kyrgyzstan, this chunk here. And that just goes back to Soviet ineptitude. We can dunk on them because they don't exist anymore. There's a couple of places around Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan like that. But that's pretty much all I have to show you on the tablet. So we're going to slide that out the way. And we're going to talk about the history of this region. It's short, but kind of sad. Let's talk about it. Not much was really notable here until about the 7th or 8th century, when this became a stopover of the Silk Road. Lots of old artifacts and buildings and things from that time, from its kind of glory days. The thing that it's most famous for is that it is the birthplace of Babur, which, if you know your Indian history, he was the first emperor of the Mughal Empire. So the big city center is called Babur Square to commemorate him. And pretty much just I'm trying to ignore my neighbor stomping upstairs. There he goes. Goodness, it's so loud. Anyway, it's only loud like above my computer desk. He's quiet everywhere else in the house, just there. Anyway, the Khanate of Kokand ruled the region for quite a long time, pretty much for as long as it existed, until that power waned and Russia came right in and took over in 1876. There goes my neighbor. Goodbye. Thank you. Yeah. If the Russians, the Imperial Russians, see a power vacuum, and let's be real, the Russians nowadays, if they see a power vacuum, they're going to swoop in and try to snatch it up. So this came under Russian rule during that time, and the people here weren't very happy about that. There were many different uprisings and protests, but that collapsed literally in 1902 when an earthquake destroyed the city. It was huge. And the focus was more on, rebuilding and restarting. Not to mention Russia was about to collapse in a couple years anyway, but this area remained really firmly under, I assume, Bolshevik and then later Soviet control. Until 1991 when the Soviet Union collapsed. And obviously, as you saw from Google Earth, the Soviets exploited the heck out of the farmland here. Every little inch of this place that they could build a farm, they built a farm. It's, if the Soviets see an empty spot, put a farm there, for the most part. The only other recent history to talk about is an incident that happened in 2005 when the government of Uzbekistan accused some businessmen here of being Islamist extremists and jailed them. And many, many, many people believed they were innocent and staged protests. There were some riots storming the jail that the prisoners were in, and it reached a point where there were hundreds, if not thousands, of protesters in Popper Square, and the government opened fire upon them. And it was a very vicious massacre that the Uzbek government tried extremely hard to cover up. There have been people who fled the region and said that the government built mass graves around the city so that they could hide the number of protesters that they killed. The region was closed off to the outside world for about a year while the government cleaned up to make it look like nothing had happened, but obviously something did. And it's pretty much like the only thing that pops up when you Google Andijan is this massacre. Very, very sad event. And just kind of an example of the extremes that a lot of the countries in this region will go to, not just to hold on power, but to keep out extremist power. There's a lot of paranoia, obviously, about Islamist extremists, which is a can of worms we're not going to open right now. But I'm sure you understand. I think I'm going to leave it there. I know this was a short one, but it's a place that when you try to search its history, all you can find is about the massacre and not much about its history before it was Russia or any details about it being a Silk Road stop. It's a Silk Road stop. I found nothing about caravanserais or beautiful mosques. They all seem very modern, probably because they were all destroyed in the earthquake. Anyway, so unfortunately I don't have more to say, but from what I've seen, nowadays it's an absolutely beautiful city. It looks like it has a thriving cultural scene to it, and it just seems like a very lovely place from what I can tell. So I do get lots of very lovely comments from people in this area, mainly Kazakhs. So if you've been there or are Uzbek and proud of your country, let me know down in the comments. You're all just very lovely people. Let me say that. But it's a short but sweet one. I'm going to end it there. If I could have made it longer, I would have. But thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoy this style of content, please consider subscribing. Next, we're going to be heading to a place even tinier than this, and it's a capital city. So if you can't think of what it's going to be, or if you know and you're excited about it, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. Also, this is the end of spooky month, so say goodbye to spooky nails.